The beginning of Prince of Egypt.
Hello, and welcome to your very special journey behind the scenes of the West End's extraordinary new musical, The Prince of Egypt. Based on the acclaimed DreamWorks animated film, it tells the story of two young men raised together as brothers in a kingdom of privilege, suddenly divided by a secret past. One must rule as Pharaoh, the other must rise up and free his true people. Both face a destiny that will change history forever. Let's take a look. Whilst The Prince of Egypt is one of the biggest musicals ever to be staged in London, today we're bringing our show to your living room with some exclusive performances, interviews, and we're going to be answering your questions. Now, we begin with a very special conversation between the writer and composer of both the movie and the musical, Philip Lezebnik and Stephen Schwartz. My fellow castmate, Oliver Lidder, sat down with them to find out how they brought this story to life.
For more than 3,000 years, this tale of dignity, identity, and the search for a better life has passed down through the generations. So I'm thrilled to be able to explore it a bit further with the extraordinary creative team of Philip Lezebnik and Stephen Schwartz. Thank you both so much for coming to join me.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you again.
So I have a few questions for you gentlemen today. And the first one is the 1998 film, The Prince of Egypt, was the first animated feature by DreamWorks. Could you tell us about the genesis of DreamWorks and its relationship with the original story and film and now musical?
Well, I had a meeting shortly after the formation of DreamWorks with Jeffrey Katzenberg, with whom I'd worked at Disney. And at the meeting were also Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. And they asked me to come in because they wanted to discuss the possibility of my writing the songs for their first animated feature. Obviously, I was very enthusiastic about that idea without knowing at all what the subject matter was going to be. Steven Spielberg said, well, we're thinking of doing an animated version of the Ten Commandments. But we're not going to call it that. We're going to call it The Prince of Egypt, and we see it as a brother story. And then I became very intrigued and very enthusiastic about working on it. And through all these years and all these incarnations, it's remained a brother story.
Would you both mind telling us a bit about the process in developing the stage production?
Stephen happened to be in Denmark, where I live, because I had invited him to do the songs for a musical about Hans Christian Andersen. And during the rehearsals, one of the cast members said, there's a small community theater in Sweden, right across the bridge from Denmark, which is doing their own version of Prince of Egypt. So we went over to Sweden and we saw this community theater production of Prince of Egypt. I think it's safe to say that they were stunned to have Stephen in the audience. It was quite a big deal for them. And afterwards we said, it works pretty well as a stage show.
Yeah, the first actual production was at a regional theater in California. And at that time, it was still thought that we would do a tryout production, try and basically get the show right, and then release it for groups around the world who were interested in doing it. That production proved so successful that there began to be interest in maybe doing it on a bigger scale, and that's how it led us to the production at the Dominion Theatre.
What do you guys think the difference is writing for the stage than the screen?
Well, a film is a sequence of short moments, of cuts, but you can't cut on stage. You have to let the scenes flow. They have to grow. I really felt that the stage version was an opportunity to discover much more about the characters, to delve much more deeply into relationships.
Of course, many more songs were required. There are 10 new songs in the stage version of Prince of Egypt, whereas there are just 5 songs that were carried over from the movie. And you just have the opportunity to investigate both the situations, the characters, and most importantly, to me at least, thematically and dramatically, what is going on. The story can be made richer when you tell it for the stage. You have more time, as I say, you have more songs, and you can go into it, you can make it more profound.
Deliver Us is one of the standout songs from the movie and also opens the musical production with the full ensemble on stage. Stephen, can you tell us what the song is about and how you came to write it?
Deliver Us was the first song that was written for the animated feature. About a year before anything else, it sets up the entire situation. So we are in ancient Egypt. It's around 3,000 years ago, and there are Hebrew slaves who are in a very desperate situation. We see them laboring to build pyramids and statues for the Egyptians, and we see soldiers grabbing infants from distraught mothers. And then we encounter one specific mother, Yocheved, who is singing a lullaby to her son and who is going to protect him from the Egyptians. And therefore, she puts him into a basket and casts him adrift onto the Nile, hoping that somehow God or fate or something will protect him.
So following on from that, the million-dollar question, as they would say, is why is this story important right now?
We live in a time when we are being overwhelmed by events that are beyond our control, that are bigger than any of us. There seems to be decreasing empathy and decreasing understanding of others' rights and others' points of view. And of course, we live in a time where racial issues are, I think, very overdue, being considered and coming to the fore, and the sort of artificial definition of people based on this construct of race that affects how they're treated and how their lives go. And all of these ideas are part of the story of Prince of Egypt. So it feels, I think, more contemporary now even than it did when the movie first came out. And of course, this is a story that's been around for thousands of years, but it seems to be dealing with situations, ideas, and themes that are very current for us, you know, in 2020, 2021, and beyond.
Yeah, I think it's an extraordinary time that we live in.
What I really was happy about was that the audience was as diverse as our cast was on stage. I mean, I've never seen an audience like it, young and old, veteran theater goers, people who had never been to a show before in their life. This show, I mean, perhaps because of the nature of the film, also brings people and will bring people to the theater who are unexpected, who don't normally come to a theater. And that's just so enormously gratifying.
So as we all wait with bated breath to sit in the audience of The Prince of Egypt again, how can people who love the material relate to it now that we're in lockdown?
Well, something happened that was lucky, which is that we recorded this cast album before the show opened. And I think it's turned out extremely well. We have amazing singers in our cast. And of course, there are these beautiful orchestrations by August Eriksson of the music. So I guess I would say if people are interested in sort of experiencing what part of what the show might be, the cast album is available, I'm happy to report.
I will also say that there are a lot of YouTube clips out there of snippets of the show. Many of them, I believe, on the Prince of Egypt official website. So you can get an idea of what this show is by seeing those.
One of the new songs, which is actually on the album, I believe, is Never in a Million Years, which was a new song just for the stage production. Stephen, would you mind telling us a bit about its place in the show and what the song's about?
Well, as I said, one of the pleasures of doing the show for the stage was the ability to investigate more deeply some of the relationships, including the love relationship, the improbable love relationship between Moses and his eventual wife, Zipporah, which is, of course, in the film, but rather briefly dealt with by necessity. But in the show, we can explore how their relationship develops more fully. And this is a song in which Moses and Zipporah, rather shyly and a bit surprised at their own depth of feeling for one another, finally admit to the fact that they're in love.
Would you ever have thought, given where we started, you and I would chance to meet?
Never in a million years.
Never in a million years.
And now could you feel somehow incomplete.
Never in a million years.
Never in a million years.
Could you ever have imagined we'd be here like this, ever nearing the inevitable day we kiss? And if you should ask how soon I think this feeling disappears, never in a million years.
Never in a million years. Could I ever have imagined I'd be here like this, in the afterglow of finally reaching our first kiss? And if I were asked how soon I think this feeling disappears, never in a million years, my love. Never in a million years.
We're really missing our audiences from all over the country and beyond. It was so awesome looking out into the auditorium and seeing such an amazingly diverse audience on their feet every single night. So, whilst we're missing that connection, we're delighted to at least be able to answer some of your questions now.
A massive, massive thank you to everyone who sent in their questions for us. I'm actually joined by some of the cast from the show. We couldn't all fit in, but there is a fair few of us here. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So, the first question is, what is your favourite part of the show?
It has to be the parting of the Red Sea. It's astonishing. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. Certain elements were brought together to create something very, very special, just visually and musically as well.
My favourite part of the show has to be the plagues.
Plagues, oh, just the way it moves.
My favourite part of the show has to be Deliver Us. It's such an incredible opening sequence. It really sets up the show.
And it's the moment at the end of this opening song and the audience go bananas, and that's my favourite. It's like a sort of barometer for the show for me. That's probably my favourite part of the show.
What do you miss most about performing?
The team, definitely, especially with this show. We had a really intense rehearsal period, spending 6, sometimes 7 days a week with each other.
And it's become a second family. It's such a close-knit group of people. They're just such a lovely bunch.
I really miss the ritual of getting focused and getting into character and then walking out onto the stage to live that character's journey and tell the story, and to really connect with not just my fellow actors, but to connect with the audience.
One of my favourite moments is seeing the audience reaction at the end of Act 1, like their hands. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Were you familiar with the film before you auditioned for the musical?
Absolutely, I was a fan, and the music I just kind of grew up with and knew it was in my DNA.
Such a great animation.
Somewhere in a deep dark corner of someone's attic is a recording of me and my younger cousin singing When You Believe together.
Prince of Egypt was one of the first movies I saw in the cinema.
What is your top tip for learning your lines?
Haha.
My top tips for learning my lines are writing it out loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of times.
Okay, so I always record my lines. I'll get somebody to read the scene with me and read the other characters or character.
And also repetition.
Repeat, repeat, repeat.
I think it was Anthony Hopkins says that he reads a script, or certainly his part of the script, at least 100 times before he gets in front of the camera.
How did you prepare for your role?
It was quite an intense preparation for me because Some of the notes that I have to sing in the show, you don't sing that often, or they're not that exposed.
Coming from a classical training, I had to sort of give the voice a real sort of focus and discipline.
I cycled to Egypt. I put a lot of Egyptian mud all over my body, and then I lay on a pyramid and I chanted my character's name, Pharaoh Seti.
I took dance classes, so I took belly dancing, I took lyrical dance, I took a bit of ballet, a bit of contemporary, even a bit of hip hop, just to kind of feel a bit more confident in my body and stuff. And yeah, I think it's paid off.
If you could play any other character in the show, who would it be?
Well, it's not often I get to play the antagonist, so I would have to say Ramesses, my son.
For rock star status, I would love to play the Gary Wilmot, Jethro, just to show up and sing the absolute best song in the show and just like, I'm done. Mic drop.
Hotep,
because he's an evil legend.
played brilliantly by our Adam Pearce. Yeah, he got to go to magic school, so a little bit jealous.
Now, I love to dance, and look at me, I'm not a dancer, but the incredible work that our dancing ensemble do in this show is mind-blowing, and I would love for just one day, one show, to be one of the dancers. They are incredible.
What would your 10 commandments of lockdown be?
Thou shalt find routine. Yeah, routine has been really, really important for me.
DIY. I moved house during lockdown, which was hell.
Thou shalt remember to stay grateful and keep positive and optimistic.
Get creative. I know lots of people have started baking and things like that.
Thou shalt call a friend or a relative, someone that you love, and just check in. Just the simple act of seeing if someone's okay, I think is important at this time.
If you could revisit a moment in history, what would it be?
The Great Library of Alexandria. Apparently there were records that were just gargantuan, and we lost all these sort of crucial artifacts, medicine, science. So if I could have prevented that, maybe, or just seen it in its glory, to be honest.
As corny as this is, would have to be to do with Ramesses. I would love to go back and visit Ramesses at the point of where he signed the first ever peace treaty.
Super Saturday, 2012 London Olympics. That day in that stadium must have been electric.
This is a good one. What item would you choose to take to the afterlife with you?
I don't know.
This is a pretty dark question.
Well, having been consulted by my agent and my manager and PA, it would have to be my children.
I would take my pets, which happen to be 2 dogs. Sorry to my husband, but my dogs would have to come with me. And my wedding ring.
My wedding ring.
I'd like to take a Steinway grand piano to the afterlife. So when I get there, I'd like to do the thing that I do most, and that's sing some songs.
I think I'd bring my library of video recordings and audio recordings just so I could just revisit that time and, yeah, remember everything that made life on Earth special and beautiful.
I'd have to take Spotify with me. Is that a possibility?
Can I take my cats? Yeah, I want to take Eggy and Boo.
Thanks for your questions and joining us for this exclusive programme. We've got one final performance to share with you before we go, and here's Stephen Schwartz to introduce it to you.
This is When You Believe. It's, of course, a song from the film. And during the song, the Hebrew tribes are celebrating their freedom and their deliverance from bondage in Egypt.
Many nights we've Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe? Somehow you will. You will when you believe. In this time of fear, when prayer so often proved in vain, hope seemed like the summer of birds too swift